Domestic violence against women is a worldwide issue. However, I would like to concentrate on violence against women in the Caribbean, because it is a culture I am familiar with. In the Caribbean community, women are DYINGing in horrifying ways every day, and the perpetrators are mostly men. Majority of the women who are no longer with us today knew the person who did that to them. Most were boyfriends or spouses. Many factors in our society contribute to domestic violence, and some of the things I am about to say may upset some people. I am not here to upset anyone. I'm just here to point a few things out because in our culture, people don't like to talk about certain things. This message is directed to men, women, and people in our society because we are all part of this problem. What I am about to say is not to justify men behavior, but rather to understand why they are so aggressive and violent. I feel if we know the root of the problem, we can prevent it. In our culture, parents treat their sons and daughters very differently. Parents value their sons more than their daughters. Some parents in our culture belittle their daughters all the time. Mothers especially favor their sons more than their daughters, and they encourage bad behavior. Even when their sons treat them unkindly, they still favor them more than their daughters. And in most cases, it's the daughters who are supporting them emotionally and financially. In our culture, it's mostly the daughters who are burdened with all the family issues, not the sons. But the sons always get treated the best. Women learn at a very young age to tolerate mistreatment. This is why women get involved with toxic men. A lot of women suffer from childhood trauma. We learn to tolerate mistreatment at home from our parents. A lot of men who abuse women learn this behavior from their parents. It starts at home. These men witness their fathers abuse their mothers, control their mothers, and treat their mothers like servants. As they grow up, they watch their neighbors and other men abuse their partners. Some of these men were victims themselves growing up. Because of this, a lot of them suffer from psychological problems that go untreated because there is this stigma attached to mental illness in our society. It's not taken seriously. Most people are embarrassed to talk about it, especially men. In our society, men don't talk about their problems, and they don't reach out for help because they are told it's not a manly thing to do. They are ashamed to talk openly about their problems. A lot of them are suffering from childhood trauma. Infidelity is a huge reason for domestic violence in our society. Infidelity is something that is normal now in our society. Some people openly brag about it. Boys witness their mothers cheat on their fathers. It's not just men who cheat. Women cheat just as much as men do. As a result of this, boys grow up resenting women. They grow up with anger and trust issues. Some of these men were verbally and physically mistreated by their mothers when they were little boys. A man's first impression of a woman comes from his mother. When little boys witness this behavior from their mothers, it can be very damaging. They grow up believing that all women are the same. They become very disrespectful towards women. Parents sometimes don't see how their behavior impacts their children. This affects your children later in life and their relationships. They unleash all of that anger and resentment on their partner. In our culture, parentification is a huge problem, especially with mothers and sons. It occurs when the fathers are no longer in the picture and the sons are forced to assume the role of a father. It's when mothers start to treat their sons like their best friends and surrogate spouses. They develop an unhealthy attachment to their sons. Boys in adolescence are forced to take on responsibilities that they are not ready for. It affects their development. These boys are robbed of their childhood because they are forced to be there for their mothers. They are unable to date and explore and do things boys their age do. They are unable to focus on their education and extracurricular activities. Later on, these boys grow up feeling powerless because they don't have any skills or proper education to get a job. They are unable to provide for their families. This creates a lot of stress and insecurities. Mothers put a lot of pressure on their sons. Some of them are extremely toxic to their sons when they don't get their way. From what I've seen in our culture, mothers are more toxic than the fathers. I cannot go into detail because certain things we are not allowed to say here. I have to use different words. Aside from the physical part, they belittle their sons. They turn all the anger they have for their ex-spouse on their sons, saying things like, "You are no good. You are just like your father." Later on, men explode on their partners when they meet a woman that reminds them of their mothers. Indo-Caribbean mothers are way too possessive over their sons. Some mothers have no boundaries when it comes to their grown sons. They get jealous when their sons spend time with their partners. Therapist refers to this as emotional incest. The word is upsetting. I know that. When the son gets married, he cannot focus on his wife because his mother is always demanding time and emotional support. In most cases, mothers are dependent on their sons financially. As a result of this, the wife feels neglected. When she complains about inappropriate behavior from the mother, it turns into arguments and a domestic altercation. Yes, in our culture, the responsibilities are on the sons, but sometimes it's overbearing pressure. In our society, parents are way too dependent on their children, and this puts a lot of pressure on their children and their relationships with their partners. And men take that anger and frustration out on women. In some cases, women take this frustration out on men. It goes both ways. Some men never had proper parental guidance growing up. They are extremely insecure and have a hard time dealing with their emotions. They have a difficult time getting along with others. They have low self-esteem problems. They develop unhealthy attachments to their partners. They have a hard time letting go of people who no longer want to be with them. They don't respond to rejection the way others do. They have a difficult time getting a job because they don't have a good education. This leaves men feeling powerless. They have this need to control the women in their lives. They don't know how to work out their issues in a healthy way. As children, they were forced to deal with a lot of things on their own. They have substance abuse problems. Men self-medicate a lot with alcohol and other substances in our society because that's the only way they know how to deal with their emotions. That's the best way they know how to cope. And alcohol and mental illness do not mix. It heightens the problem. People with anger problems become even more aggressive and violent under the influence of alcohol. This is a huge problem in the Caribbean. I see people say online that drinking is part of our culture. This is not true. Not everyone drinks and party and act the fool. Men rarely talk about their feelings. They are afraid to do it because they were told it's not a manly thing to do. They were told not to be sensitive, not to be vulnerable, not to do this, not to do that. Men in our society are programmed at a very young age to behave a certain way with women. They are encouraged to be more aggressive. Then society blames them for acting the way they were taught. That is unfair. It's confusing. It's contradicting. Growing up, little boys are encouraged to act like men. When little boys are upset, fathers tell their sons to suck it up and be a man. Don't be a girl. Don't be a wimp. Don't be an auntie. And you know the rest. Real men don't cry. Some might say, I don't say these things to my sons. Well, other people in the community are saying it to them, and they grow up believing these things. When you tell a child to suck it up and stop crying, you are telling them that it's not okay to let their feelings out. When you do this, they will develop the habit of burying their emotions, which will be detrimental later on. When your child is upset, acknowledge that he's upset and encourage him to talk about it. Give him advice on how to solve his problem and encourage him to let it go. If you don't have anything nice to say to them, just don't say anything. Let them be. At a young age, parents are teaching their children to mask their feelings. They learn to suppress their pain and their feelings. And this builds up and then comes out later. Instead of using words to express their emotions, they use their fist. Most brown people's parenting skills are very poor. When children attempt to talk about their feelings, they are told to shut up. Don't act like a big woman. Don't act like a big man. At the same time, they give their children responsibilities they cannot handle. Parents say vulgar things and humiliate their children. They say children should be seen, not heard. You are teaching your children to bottle things up. When your child suppresses their feelings and pain, it creates psychological issues later on. West Indian men love to joke around. Honestly, I love this about my Caribbean guys, but a lot of them use humor to cover their pain. The funny ones are usually the ones carrying the most pain inside. They are so good at masking their feelings that you don't even see that they are struggling with depression and mental illness. They use humor to get away with bad behavior too. They are so good at it that you don't even see their chauvinistic behavior when it's happening in front of your face. If you pay attention, you will see the way some of them disrespect their women. They belittle them and order them around. You will hear the name-calling and the way he puts her down in front of people. They say things jokingly, so it goes unnoticed sometimes. Most of the time, people see it and just ignore it. If you see your boys being toxic to their partners, have a talk with them. Confront them. Ask them what's up. Don't laugh and ignore it. I know some people are afraid to say things because in our culture, people don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to be corrected, but we need to stand up for what's right. I am not sticking up for men or making excuses for them. I am just saying that this problem involves men and women. It hurts everyone that's involved. We have to focus on both to solve this problem. Men resort to violence because they don't know other ways to solve their problems. They never had proper guidance growing up. A lot of them witnessed their parents' infidelity. A lot of them had parents who had addiction problems. A lot of them have abandonment issues. A lot of them grew up in poverty. Growing up, they were told that they were nothing. They were physically and emotionally mistreated as children. They were neglected. They were humiliated. They were bullied. Most of them never received therapy. When children keep all of this in, it affects them later on. It leads to neglect in relationships, unhealthy relationships, cheating, lying, domestic violence. They can't fully share themselves with others. They are unable to show love and affection because they never had that growing up. They are unable to show their softer side. Their parents never showed them love or teach them how to love. If you ask most adults, they will tell you they never got a hug from their parents. They never heard the words, "I love you." They never heard anything good from their parents. And it's not the fault of most parents. They, too, did not receive that from their parents. It's a toxic cycle that just keeps on repeating. In our culture, most women are financially dependent on their spouse. Most women stay home and take care of the family, and the men work. So, women in our culture are more dependent on their partners for everything, and that makes it harder for women to leave toxic situations. They are afraid to live in poverty with their children. Some men take advantage of this. They get away with a lot because they are in control of the finances. Ladies, depending on anyone financially is a very bad idea. Please always have your own money, even if your partner is kind to you, because you might find yourself in this situation too. I've seen women online asking for help to feed their children, and people say things like, "Why does she have so many kids if she can't look after them?" They say horrible things. Women say these things about other women. This angers me. As a woman, you should be ashamed to say such things, especially if you are a woman of color, because you know how it is for women in our culture. Why are we judging and shaming these women? They didn't make these kids alone. Why is no one pointing the finger at these men? Again, the women get the blame. How many of you ladies have been duped by men? How many of you became pregnant and then got dumped after? What some people don't realize is that because of cultural beliefs and traditions, women are forced into marriage at a very young age. There is this pressure to have babies at a young age. Before they realize it, they are trapped and stuck in a bad situation. Some of these women were abused and manipulated at a very young age. They don't know any better. They don't have proper education. There is no money and no place to go. People in our culture treat less fortunate people like garbage when they try to make an honest living. They are treated like lepers, criminals, and drug addicts. In our culture, some women are not allowed to work. The man is in control of the money. because he was taught that he should be in control. Sometimes the man goes to the bar on payday, and when the money is finished, he comes home demanding relation. Whatever the man wants, he gets. They were programmed this way. If she doesn't give in to his demands, he gets a BUS'd her. She could barely buy food, much less afford birth control. In most countries, it's not easy to access these things. Some women don't have the money to travel to faraway places to get contraceptives. In some countries, some men treat women like objects. They treat women as their private chefs, their maids. They show no affection. So, when someone comes along and show least bit of affection, women fall for it, only to fall into another trap. There are men out there who manipulate and use women for their own selfish gains. These women that you are judging are victims of mistreatment. It hurts me when I see people say these awful things about women who are clearly struggling. The government should provide contraceptives for women, provide female condoms, and teach women how to protect themselves. Because the truth is, most men don't like to use protection. Men in our culture were taught that it's okay for them to do as they please because they are men. Some men are the bosses in the household. They control everything, what she spends, where she goes, who she talks to. Again, they learn this from their elders. It's not only the fathers who teach their sons this, but also the mothers. Mothers control their sons, and they encourage them to behave this way. Mothers are responsible for making their daughters-in-law's life a living nightmare. They do it so subtly that even their sons don't realize it's happening. In-laws sometimes encourage mistreatment because men are valued more than women in our community. Some believe you should strike a woman to keep her in check and in line. It's mostly mothers who tell their sons to do this. Parents teach their sons that they should put their foot down and show the woman who is boss. There are mothers out there who teach their sons to be this way. Whatever the man says, the woman must follow. It doesn't matter if the woman is facing all kinds of mistreatment. Marriage is not perfect, they say. It's just a rough patch. Focus on the good and ignore the bad. So, what if he strikes you once in a while? Stop doing things to irritate him. A lot of times, women are forced by their families and religious leaders to go back to their toxic partner, to stay in their marriages and to work it out. Because this is what a good wife does. We are taught that divorce is wrong and a sin, and it certainly is. But the Lord also says, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Love your wife as Christ loves the church." We tend to pick and choose parts that suit us and ignore the rest, especially the part that's right. Our brains are programmed from childhood with a lot of nonsense. Watch the Hindi movie Padman. You will see a perfect example of that. The nonsense continues to pass from generation to generation. There is another movie, The Great Indian Kitchen. It's on YouTube with English subtitles. It also shows what it is like for a lot of Indian women, and it shows who is responsible for it. Parents. In our culture, most people don't like their in-laws. Why? Mainly because of this reason. People are always caught between the person they are with and their parents. This creates a lot of stress in relationships, and men take the anger out on women. This creates a lot of problems in relationships, and sometimes parents are aware that they are the reason, but they don't care. The problem here is that the constant meddling leads to domestic issues. This is a problem that a lot of Indo-Caribbean couples face. Most women who are in this situation don't have support from family and friends. They have no money. They don't have any job experience. They were forced to get married so young that they never got the opportunity to finish school. In some countries, it's not easy to get jobs. Sometimes, the only jobs these women could find were domestic jobs. And for those who are unaware, people are extremely unkind to their maids and those who work in their homes. From what I've seen, less fortunate people get worse treatment back home. They don't show these things in the vlogs online. They just show all the wonderful things. So these women sometimes have no choice but to stay in that situation and endure it day after day. A lot of people don't get this, especially foreigners who are looking on from the outside. They judge these women harshly. In our culture, people are always in each other's business. They talk about people all the time. They know who is sleeping with whom. They know who is mistreating their partners. It's like the news station. It goes around the world in minutes. There's always some drama, always. It's like being in a real-life Hindi soap opera. There's always someone in the family stirring the pot behind the scenes. When it comes to mistreatment, people act like they don't know anything. Even when someone comes forward and says, "I need help, I am getting abused," suddenly no one wants to get involved in domestic affairs. Everyone pulls away. Even police officers blame the women when they call for help. Instead of preaching to women to be good wives, we should also preach to men to be good, respectful husbands, and we need to teach parents and people in our society how to be kind. Women are not just here to make babies, be maids, and be at a man's beck and call, to be a man's punching bag. If we want to see change, we must first try to change ourselves. Women need to be more supportive of other women. Women need to come forward and form support groups. Religious leaders should have support groups for women and men who cannot control their anger issues. Help each other out. There are things that we can do for each other if we join together. Don't tell me if a drunk man is striking his wife next door. A few people together can't save her. We can do a lot, but nothing will happen if we turn our heads and say, "It's not my problem." So many times I heard people say, "I heard her screaming for help, but I ignored it. Now she's DEA'd." And they're on the news crying and pretending to care. I understand people are afraid for their lives. At least call for help. Men need to learn how to control their anger. The government should have programs to help these men learn how to control their anger. They are suffering in silence as well, and they need help. When you send these men to prison, they don't learn anything but how to be more violent. They are sitting in prison, planning and plotting how to get revenge when they are back on the streets. Most men who go to jail for domestic abuse end up committing violent crimes after their release. They need rehabilitation. They need counseling. They need a space where they can talk to other men about their feeling. The leaders of the church, temples, and masjid can help with this. They need to learn how to resolve their issues and control their anger. Putting ads and posting signs all over the place will not put an end to this problem. I left my country when I was a kid and went back in my early 20s. Everything looked different from what I had remembered. It was like a whole new experience for me. One thing that didn't change was the way some men behave. They would drive up close to me and open their doors while I was walking on the road. The excessive use of car horns was too much for me. If I had the authority, I would issue a citation for this. It's that out of hand. There was constant honking and catcalling whenever I went out, which made me feel ashamed to walk on the road. I saw this Caucasian girl talking about her experience in Guyana, and some people got mad that she was saying bad things about men in Guyana. I don't agree with everything she said, but the part about men is true. It's scary for women. I've been living in overseas for a long time, and I've never seen men behave this way. I went to a Caribbean island, and everywhere I went, men were following me around. I've never met a woman who didn't like attention from men. But this was alarming. In the past, especially in my younger years, a lot of men approached me, but they were never this aggressive. I was in GT, and these two guys were pulling at my hands. It was so bad that these older gentlemen yelled at them to let go of me. I understand they are trying to get passengers, but grabbing women like this isn't right. You can't just pop up in front of people and grab them like this. People get seriously hurt for things like this in other countries. People go to jail for things like this. Men would come up and make comments about my body. I recall this guy approaching me and telling me that my skin looked like honey, and he went on to say a lot more. He was right up in my face. I could feel his breath against my skin. Men would say things like, "I can take you if I want." Telling women that you have a gun and are threatening to kidnap someone isn't alluring. It was frightening. People would say, "Well, maybe you were wearing skimpy clothes." No, I don't wear these types of clothing. And even if I were, men have no right to say these things to women. Women cannot walk the road in peace without someone making kissing sounds, whistling, and making comments. I was told this is normal and some women like it. They take it as a compliment. Well, not all of us take this as a compliment. Men, you may not mean any harm, but you have to watch what you say and do. You have to learn how to approach a woman. I've been a SSAULTE'd a few times in my life, and for women who have been through this stuff, this type of behavior is scary. There was this little boy next door. He would peek at me through the fence. Once it was raining and my clothes got wet, he started making comments about my body. Long story short, years later, I learned he went to prison for BRU2LE raping 2 females. One was just 9 years old. See the point I'm trying to make here? Children are picking these things up from grown-ups. We need to watch and correct children when they misbehave and make inappropriate comments. Don't laugh and say it's cute when kids do these things that are inappropriate. These cute, sweet little ones sometimes grow up to be monsters. Little things lead to bigger problems later on. Little boys learn this behavior from the men in our community, and if we want to see a change, we need to be more mindful of the things we do and say. Young men are very promiscuous and aggressive, and people are encouraging this behavior. I see tweens and teenagers bragging about their sex life on television. They should not have one at that age. They are so young and already being disrespectful towards women. This is a result of neglect and poor parenting. Men in our society should be more mindful of the things they say and do in front of their sons and little boys. These boys will grow up to be men one day, so you have to teach them well. When mature men in our society see young men doing wrong, they should confront them. A lot of these men are from broken homes. They never had a father or a father figure. Sometimes they need that guidance. Teach your boys to respect women. Teach women to watch out for red flags. Ladies, abuse starts with criticism. It starts with jealousy and control. It starts with a push and a pull. It starts with a pinch or a slap. Then comes the apology. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I didn't mean it, and it won't happen again. Don't believe that BS, it will happen again. The next time will be a full-fledged whooping, followed by, you made me do it. The cycle is then repeated with an apology and gifts to entice you back. Ladies, this is not someone who is ready for a serious relationship or marriage. Take a step back, or you will regret it. This is someone who needs help. We cannot change the past, but we can change what's happening currently. If we want to see change, then we have to start with ourselves. Society is part of this problem. Before I conclude, I want to say this to people. It is not easy for a woman to walk away. In fact, walking away is actually the most dangerous time, and most women in this situation know this. People should not judge and call women stupid for staying. People need to understand that a lot of women cannot afford to walk away so easily. I saw somewhere it takes about 8 attempts before a woman leaves for good. The thing is, most abusers are not always mean. They are actually nice most of the time. Most of them are faithful husbands and good fathers, which is why some women find it hard to leave. They stay because of love. They stay because of their children. They stay because of fear and guilt. They are manipulated into believing they are the ones causing the problem. Most women who are suffering from domestic violence stay because they think things will change because it's not always bad. They love who the person is when he's not violent. And a lot of people get angry at women for this. When I was a little girl, my next-door neighbor used to strike his wife. He would run her around the yard with objects, he would whip her with a belt, and she would say, "My husband strike me because he loves me." She actually bragged about it. So I lived right next door. He was nice to everyone else. He was a good father, he was hardworking, he was a family man, he had a drinking problem, and then he would turn into a monster. So she ignored this one-part problem and focused on his good qualities. My point is that a woman who is being abused thinks very differently. It's something people cannot understand. Only someone who is experiencing it would understand. So please stop judging. A woman knows her situation. She will leave when she's ready. Don't judge her. When you do this, you are hurting her even more. It's a process. It takes a long time for a woman to walk away. She will when she feels safe enough to walk away. What you can do in the meantime is listen when she needs someone to talk to and support her when she needs support. What you can do for her is offer her financial help or a safe place when she's ready. I want to say to women, when you are ready to leave, don't announce it to your abuser. Have a plan and move in silence. Insulting a abuser and making threats to leave them or telling them that you're in love with someone else is dangerous. These men are controlling. Telling them that you are leaving is not a good idea. People do awful things when they feel desperate or when they feel like they are losing control. When a toxic person like these approaches, please remain silent. I know it's difficult at times, but try not to talk or engage with them. You cannot get through to a person who is in rage. When he's angry and he tries to walk away, don't block him. Let him go and walk it off and cool down. Never attempt to hit a man who has an anger problem. Don't go up in his face. Say things that you know will hurt him when he is in rage. This is a very bad idea, and it can be extremely dangerous. The less you say, the better it is for you. The best thing you can do for yourself is to have a plan when you are ready to leave. Always have a bag packed with your important documents, few items that you will need in case you have to leave in a rush. If you have a partner and he comes home drunk when you are in the kitchen, get out of the kitchen and leave if it's possible. Stay away from hot oil and hot stove around someone like this. Save your money if you can. Pray to God to help you and guide you. Prayers are powerful. Go to church and try to get some personal counseling for yourself. Try to connect with other women who are going through the same things and form a support group. You can do this in person or online. There are a lot of groups now. Join one. It will help you. You can come together and help each other. Don't lean on friends and family who like to gossip. Sometimes it's the worst thing you can do. Sharing your business with friends and family can cause more harm than good. Reach out to them only if they are trustworthy and supportive, and give good advice. When you are ready to move in silence. Only share your plans with people you trust. Most abusers are very dependent on their partners. They have this fear of rejection and being abandoned. They are psychologically unable to let go. This is what drives them to be even more physical when a woman threatens to leave. When you leave, never agree to meet with them, no matter what the situation is or what they tell you. They will try to reach out to you and manipulate you with sweet words and false promises. Don't fall for it. If you meet with them and you sense that they are upset, do what you can to calm them down. Even if you have to make false promises to meet later, do it and get away from them safely. It can be extremely dangerous. Keep a journal and report it every time they do something. This could help you get a restraining order against them. Be careful and know that you are not alone. I want to say to men who are abusive, listen to me, my brother. I'm speaking to you as a sister would to her brother. When you strike a woman, you break her spirit. You make her feel worthless. You make her feel helpless. You make her feel stupid for staying with you and supporting you. You make her feel hate for you. You destroy her emotionally and mentally. All she feels around you is fear, resentment, and regret. She feels regret about choosing you as a partner. When she first met you, she thought you were a good man. She thought you would love and protect her, but now you intimidate and hurt her. How can a woman feel love and respect for someone who behaves like a monster? Would you love someone and respect someone who strike you and ill-treat you? When you abuse a woman, you not only leave scars and destroy her from within, but you also destroy your family and your children. You are destroying your children psychologically. Every time you hit a woman, you are putting her life at risk. When you are in a rage, you can mistakenly hit her in the head and end her life. Then your life is ruined as well. It's done. The Lord says there is no peace for the wicked. You will never be at peace after taking someone's life. When you take a mother away from her children, you traumatized your children and destroyed their lives as well. Do you know what happens to them when their mother and father are not in their lives? They end up being mistreated by other people. They face difficulties and hardships in life. This is unnecessary suffering that you are causing. This can be prevented. Your children face abuse in many different forms from other people. In most cases, they end up on the streets, doing terrible things to cope and survive. You are putting them on a path that leads to poverty. When they are left on their own to struggle, they end up meeting people who exploit them and do vile things to them. Do you know the challenges they face when they go to orphanages and relatives' homes? They go through horrible things. It makes my heart break when I think about the things some of them experience. Some of the people who run these orphanages are horrible to children and just use them for things and money. People need to be aware of this as well. All I can say is, when you are not allowed to see the children or give them presents or feed them, that is a red flag right there. When you abuse your partner, Your daughters continue the cycle by going with men who mistreat them and treat them like garbage. Treat them the same way you treated their mothers. They witnessed you do it, and now they think it's normal to be treated this way. Most of these women who are messed up and online doing terrible things for money had fathers like you. Your sons will become abusers like you. You are destroying so many lives when you choose to put your hand on a woman. Men are being abused by women too, and it's wrong. That's another topic we must talk about because I've seen women do this to men, old women and young ones. If you are mistreating your partner, you need help. Fellas, it's okay to talk about your feelings. You need to reach out and talk to someone and get the help that you need. I'm pleading with you. Walk away when you are angry. When you pause for a minute, you will be amazed at how differently you will feel. Physical activity will help to reduce your stress and frustration. Reach out and get help if you cannot control your anger. Stop drinking if that is the problem. Talk to your partner, they will gladly help you. Please seek help. You could take someone's life, ruin your life, and others as well. When you go to prison, your family also serves a sentence with you. You need to think about these things and get some help. Let's be the change we want to see. If you agree with me, please share this, that the message gets around. Thanks. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. It's free and it will help my videos reach a wider audience. More videos to come. Thank you so much.